So the Unearthed Arcana read-throughs that I did with Treant Monk were kind of our first impressions to the Unearthed Arcana. We recorded it literally that day that it dropped. So now that we've had a bit more time with this, and I've done my own kind of research into it, and I've seen the comments on those videos, I'm doing this video separately, just kind of as a going through my thoughts of what we've seen and hopefully informing you guys as to some interactions that I've heard either in my Discord or whatever. But I'm giving you guys my now informed opinion as to what the changes are, kind of my thoughts as to what this could mean for the future of D&D, and I'm going to get into it a bit more as the designer side. First thing I just want to say real quick here, I am going to start holding Wizards' feet to the fire here, because what I'm seeing right now, this is no longer the backwards compatible version of D&D that they have been promoting and promising us. If you were to take any of the 5th edition character option focused books and try to use them with this material, it's incompatible. None of the Bard colleges came with a 10th level feature, so this new Bard class won't be compatible with Xanthar's Guide or Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. There's some of the Ranger and Rogue subclasses that won't be compatible with this over here. We're getting to the point now where I cannot operate under the assumption that by backwards compatible, they mean that character options are going to be backwards compatible anymore. I just don't really understand how this new core rulebook is supposed to be backwards compatible if it's only going to have 48 subclasses in it, and 40 of those are going to be the ones that were in the player's handbook, and we have so many Bard colleges and other subclasses that just aren't going to be compatible with this. So what's going to make me a lot more comfortable with keeping on promoting this content in the way that I do over here is if someone at Wizards of the Coast releases a statement or says something about what exactly they mean by backwards compatible, because they've used this vague term and they let us fill in the blanks. And this does relate to this UA, because this UA is the first sign to me that we're no longer backwards compatible. I feel that it's really disingenuous for a company like Wizards of the Coast to keep promoting this new edition or whatever as something that's backwards compatible, because the thing that we are assuming now is like, oh, then we can still buy the new books that you all are printing and they're going to work for like this future of D&D or whatever. If what they meant by this was like all of the old adventures are going to be compatible with this new edition of D&D, that's not really saying a whole lot. That's not really something that you can market as like, this is a perk to this new edition, quote unquote, whatever you want to call it, right? If everything's supposed to be backwards compatible, we would assume that every book, and I'll make the leap, right? At every book except for the player's handbook should be backwards compatible, right? Whatever you're going to say. So that's like my dig right there. I will get into the PDF here in just a second, but yeah, I think that we should be pressing them on this further. So someone at Wizards of the Coast, really, you guys need to say something about what you mean by this, all right? Otherwise, like, I don't recommend that if you're going to be buying the books in 2023 that they've announced, look, unless you're either staying in 5e and you know that you're going to stay in 5e, but if you're buying these books with the expectation that they will be working for the 1 D&D, whatever this winds up being, they're character option books, all right? And if they're dropping character options for classes that we know are getting updates in this Unearthed Arcana, it just feels really, really misleading, I guess I'll say, is like the main thing. So let's go over to the Unearthed Arcana. I'm going to do kind of a brief, but I am going to give you my thoughts into it, because if you want to see the full read through and everything, me and Treant Monk did do that. It's over here on my channel. So we're just going to be doing my brief thoughts as a designer here. So yeah, let's get into that PDF. So we're going to start out right now with the Bard. My initial thoughts right now, I'm happy to see that Bardic Inspiration, and it used to be Song of Rest. I was really hoping that they were going to be keying off of the same die size, and it was just going to be easy to, track. Having two different dice that you're using for different features just is always going to feel a little bit bizarre. I don't know. But seeing Bardic Inspiration here, it is the D6, they have it listed there, no big deal. The way that the features line up, I think that we all knew that we wanted to get a 10th level feature for Bard. It is nice to see that here in a revision. Personally, I still wish that Bard was a half-caster, but this version of Magical Secrets is actually, in a way, kind of buffed, because the overall spells that you can pick up and prepare is expanded, rather than just you pick two or three spells, if I'm remembering that right, and then you just know those spells as a bard. This is a version of it that is more powerful. I think I was reluctant to say that in the video as we were walking through it, but yeah, Magical Secrets did get a buff, and I don't think that that buff is absolutely necessary. Now, I do like the feat path, and they've unified this for all the different classes, right? All the different classes, rather than getting the ability score improvement, you're getting the feat, and as one of the feats, you can pick up the ability score improvement feat. It is mechanically the same thing, but we are now assuming that all feats, they're no longer optional. It is just a core expectation. If you're playing D&D, you're playing with feats. Scrolling on from there, looking at their base class loadout right now. The D8 hit die, that's all standard MO. They did actually, for some reason, nerf it. And I don't know that this is completely true because we haven't seen, like, are rapiers going to be simple weapons? I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but simple weapons here, you can actually now get short swords with this because short swords are no longer a martial weapon. They're now simple. So you can pick that up and use that with dexterity. So maybe this is a simplification of it. They're making it to where as a bard, you're getting the short sword that's kind of known to be your default now that you're using with dex, but yeah. The way that they're doing skills here, they're giving you the recommendations, and then it says, or any 3 skills of your choice. This is whatever, it's harmless. 3 musical instruments of your choice, that's pretty much standard MO. Armor training being a thing that was separated from the proficiencies seems like an unnecessary additional header, just as I'm thinking about it as a layout guy. I felt like armor was fine listed up here. I'm not really sure what the distinction is being made. I do also like overall we're getting rid of rolling the numbers of d4s, and that's the way that you generate your gold. Look, this is real simple right here. You get the 100 gold pieces that you can go over, buy starting equipment with. Yeah, let's not roll it, and then if you get the low rolls, then you just feel like you're going to suck as a character. Yeah, absolutely. Give you the flat one. Go for it. Multiclassing is all basically essentially the same, and now we're going to get into my first issue with the new Bard right now, and this is the new Bardic Inspiration. So what they've done with this is remove the element of tracking of who has your Bardic Inspiration and have they used it, is it even applicable to this role, XYZ thing. Now it's actually a reaction, and to me this is a flop. Whoever wrote this does not understand the narrative heart of what it means to be a Bard. A bard is somebody that is using either like stirring words, inspiration, some kind of a performance that inspires their allies, right? So that would intuit that the ally should be able to see or hear you. Rather, what's going on now is that you can see or hear the ally. If they fail the d20 test, you then, I guess somehow your bard character knows that they failed the d20 test for some reason, sure. You can use your reaction to give the creature a bardic inspiration die. This is completely against the narrative core of what it means to be a support in this way. You should be, like it said originally in Bardic Inspiration, right? The bonus action, you do a thing, you give someone a die. That is much more narratively pleasing, as long as they can, like, see or hear you, or I think it might have just been hear you originally. While this does remove an element of tracking in here, I don't think that the removal of the element of tracking is, like, a huge net benefit here. What I think you might have been able to do here is, like, say there's an ally that you inspire. You can only inspire a number of allies equal to proficiency bonus or whatever if that ally can see or hear you, right? And then sometime within whatever the original duration was, if that ally fails a d20 test, you can use your reaction to use the Bardic Inspiration die. I guess, or I don't know, something like that. The original Bardic Inspiration is so much better at conveying the narrative heart of what it means to be a bard that seeing this version makes me just feel like this just does not feel really evocative of music or like beauty as the thing that is inspiring your allies. The heal, I have seen some reactions to this that I mean, I'm more in line to agree with than not. I think that this heal actually makes short rest healing pretty not great. It actually kind of lessens the value of short rest healing in a weird way. It's also the, like, you can use your reaction to roll the Bardic Inspiration die and yada yada yada. I just feel like this would have been so much better resolved under the original, like, Bardic Inspiration. But the fact that you're getting this back on a short rest, this is insanely powerful. Like, this is a very strong healing resource. I don't really care that this doesn't actually, like, scale up all that well because it's just the Bardic Inspiration die. It's still a reaction. You are essentially always preventing your allies if they take damage that knocks them to 0 hit points. This is better than Healing Word. I'm really not a fan of this new heal. I think that this is invalidating a lot of other options that you would be using. And sure, if this isn't available, you will get Healing Word here in a little bit. So, like, I guess you can use spell slots for that. This just doesn't feel necessary. It's way more evocative as a bard to just be doing the D20 test thing. And here, sure, go for that. I do like the simplification that they have in here. If we remove this, this feature feels a lot more in line. If we make this to where this is just like, I feel like the original Bardic Inspiration is just so much more evocative of what it means to be a bard. You're very actively inspiring your allies. This is removing an element of tracking that honestly is just like, you should know that signing up for it. We don't have to streamline absolutely everything in here. There's an element of tracking, and I think that people know that whenever they sign up for that class. Okay, the spell casting is whatever. I've voiced issues in the past about like what I feel like with Bard as a full caster. Personally, just half caster makes a lot more sense to me, especially seeing the way that they're doing half caster right now, where you are getting cantrips. Bard, again, flavor pick for me. I think it should be a half caster. You gain the expertise right here at 2nd level. We're seeing this unified between all the different expert classes. This is not a big issue. Songs of Restoration. This feels like a really arbitrary way to be giving this class certain healing magic. Like, I know that they're angling away from giving out class spell lists, but in a way it feels like you are making more work. This just feels really unusual to be getting a spell list as a feature right here. It's just a spell that you know, it's always prepared. That's all fine. I don't know. Part of me would have thought it would have been cool to see this as like an early level magical secret scaling up, where like you already have the restrictions going on with your prepared spells. I love that they are limiting it by the schools of magic. If they're going with this route of like, it must be an arcane spell, it must be from one of the following. This is a very cool way to still get across some of the narrative heart of having a unique class spell list. But then you immediately overcome the cool thing that you did with this. This is a weird arbitration that I think is just like, we know that certain bards out there are going to be missing out on having their healing magic, so we're going to apply this right here. These should have just been spells that you could say, like, I don't know, this should have been something that was plugged in over here somewhere, or, again, maybe try the early magical secrets kicking on at 2nd level, where, like, you can pick a 1st level spell, yada, 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 as it applies to magical secrets. If they want to go that healing route, they can still go that healing route, and yeah. Your Bard subclass kicking on at 3rd level. This is pretty standard MO, except now all the different Bard subclasses are getting a 10th level feature. The way that they nerfed Lore Bard is making the subclass like kind of unappealing. We'll talk about that whenever we get over there. The feats, I gave my thoughts on that earlier. The changes to Jack of all trades, right here, this is making it to where Jack of all trades won't apply to initiative rolls or counter spell checks. This is calling specifically for a skill proficiency thing, that yada, yada, yada. So this is here. I think that it was originally not intended to be functioning to work with counterspell from my understanding. So this change here is just making it to where that's really, really clear. I am curious if this new wording, if they're still qualifying an initiative check as a skill proficiency. I don't know that it overcame that, but it's, I don't know. We'll see. Subclass feature kicking on at 6th. That's pretty standard. They did remove the font of inspiration kicking on at 5th. They've actually moved it down to 7th. So you now regain all your expended uses of Bardic Inspiration when you finish a short or a long rest. In addition, if a creature rolls your Bardic Inspiration die and gets a 1 after any rerolls you might have, that use of your Bardic Inspiration die isn't expended. Okay. In the talk that I was having with Chris, it did seem like getting a 1 was actually a really optimal thing to be getting in some situations, and it didn't feel like it was evoking the idea of, like, the unfailing inspiration from the Eloquence Bard, right? Which it feels like that's what this is supposed to be kind of evoking. I don't know exactly if it was just going to be that. It should probably just be that. But this with Font of Inspiration, with the heal that's going to kick in with that, I'm really curious if there's even a reason to really spend any hit dice anymore, because you're just going to get your Bardic Inspiration back on a short rest. And I think it's going to cause this loop of like, I'm going to spam out heal, give it to my buddies. We need to take another short rest. I'm going to spam out heal, give it to my buddies. You know, it feels like a weird cycle is going to develop with all of that. And that's going to lead to some pretty, like, I don't know, just boring gameplay. 8th level, you're getting the feat. 9th level, the expertise. Okay. The subclass feature at 10th level. 11th level, the new magical secrets that's happening here. I think that they have an interesting idea. I think that the fact that these are prepared spells, which means that you can swap them out with other spells on, you know, whatever, you will eventually, I mean, the thing that you're going to pick right here is going to most likely just be Divine and Primal, and then you can just swap those out. Having the one with Arcane, if you're limited to where, like, you can't get, I don't know, we'll see where Wish and everything falls, Wish or Counterspell, that could be a bit of a problem. But, like, I think for the most part with Magical Secrets, this is definitely a buff. I don't know that this is the thing that Bard really, really needed the buff to. And I think I would have rather have seen them embrace the whole, like, Red Mage kind of character to Bard a little bit earlier. Where, like, Magical Secrets right here, rather than 2 kicking on an 11th, maybe at 2nd, it was just 1. If they want you to wind up with 4 total, they can space it out where every, like, you know, 5 levels after that. So, like, I guess something like that. So you get one at 2nd level, you get one at 6th or 7th level. Let's say 7th level, and then you can get one at 11th level, and then you get one at, where was the other one, 15th? Yeah, you can spread it out like that. Maybe one at, well, I say 20th, but they're doing the new thing. You could even do that at 18th, and I think it would be fine. Superior Bardic Inspiration, this is objectively a buff. It is way, way better, but it is a way that you can regenerate, like, Bardic Inspiration. Don't power game this, because I know it's not what this is intended to do, and your DM should be the one that is ultimately deciding when initiative is rolled, okay? So with Superior Bardic Inspiration, you can Bag of Rats this, if it's allowed to play out the way that I'm kind of picturing it in my head. For when you roll initiative, you regain 2 expended uses of your Bardic Inspiration. So is there a world in which you can do a thing like charm a person to where they're friendly to you, combat is over, you go up, punch the person, and then there's a potential for you to regain the Bardic Inspiration a little bit cheaper than what's asked for? Honestly, the fact that the resource is so cheap to where you're getting it back on a shorter long rest, this is kind of whatever. I would worry about how this would interact with healing, right? If you are doing the thing where you're carrying around, like, I don't know, an angry dog or something, and every time that you want to roll initiative because you want to get this back, you go and you punch the dog, or I don't know, whatever. It feels like there's a bit of goofiness involved with this style of regenerating it, you know? Maybe if it was, whenever you roll initiative, you regain 2 expended uses of your Bardic Inspiration, and then once you do so, you can't do so again until you finish a shorter long rest, I don't know, something like that. It is better than the original Bard Capstone, so at the very least, we've got that, right? The Epic Boons, I'll talk about those here in just a little bit, but yeah, kind of my thoughts on the Bard as it's currently appearing. Not a big fan of this envisioning of it. I actually, like, I'm not super worried about the fact that it's a full caster, okay? Not super worried about that. This whole interaction that's happening up in here with the reaction, oh god, this just doesn't feel right at all to the narrative core. And look at Songs of Restoration, this feels like it's just slapped on, honestly. Jack of all trades, cool, I'm glad to see it getting the change. Fonts of Bardic Inspiration, essentially feeling the same, it's just moved a little bit later, except this is here. Overall, like, meh. Moving on, though, to College of Lore. For College of Lore, you're getting the bonus proficiencies. This is supposed to be your very vanilla bard, right? So you're getting also cutting words here. You learn how to use your wit to supernaturally distract, confuse, and otherwise sap the confidence and competence of others. When a creature that you can see within 60 feet of yourself succeeds on an ability check or an attack roll, you can use your reaction to expend one of your uses of Bardic Inspiration, rolling a Bardic Inspiration die, and subtracting the number rolled from the creature's roll, potentially turning it into a failure. So the reason why I think that they changed this, right, we have the new interaction that's happening with Bardic Inspiration, but it's applying to a damage roll and potentially negating damage from an AoE. Maybe the thing that they were trying to avoid there, That's my thought on why they don't include damage rolls in this one now. Look, you're swapping it out for a debuff mechanic here that is slightly weaker. I pretty much think that this version of Cutting Words is harmless. This version is weaker, but man, this new version of Cunning Inspiration, I don't think that this is going to have a whole lot of good feedback because they took away additional magical secrets for this. Again, they could nerf it down to where the lore bard is getting additional magical secrets, but you're like the only bard that can get, you know, arcane, or what, you can get all three in a sense, and that's real cool. I don't know. That would probably overperform. I'm just throwing an idea out there right now. Just advantage on your Bardic Inspiration die. This just doesn't really feel like it's evoking much of anything here. It is very vanilla. I'll give them that. You know, but yeah, I'm not, this one just doesn't blow my skirt up. Yeah, hey, so Taron from editing checking in right now. I just realized actually that this one acts completely anti-synergetically with the 7th level font of Bardic Inspiration, because the second paragraph of that part, if the creature rolls your Bardic Inspiration die and gets a 1, that it doesn't expend the use of Bardic Inspiration. That thing will basically never trigger if the creature is rolling your D8 or D10, whatever it is now, with advantage. So, like, it's not playing nice with the base class. So, like, it's not just getting rid of, like, something that was pretty beloved. It's also just, like, not working with itself. At 10th level, you're getting this offensive thing that kicks in whenever you're using Cutting Words and only Cutting Words. There's not a way for you to, like, also play as the support that's going to be dishing out, you know, Bardic Inspiration to your allies and saving it for that. This is pushing you to where, like, I don't even think that this is really all that worth it to do. The debuff that's happening in here, this is already pretty nice. The fact that it does the additional damage up on top, this just doesn't feel like it's doing enough to justify being a feature. Just my thought on that. Fearless Skill. Whenever you make an ability check and fail, you can expend 1 use of Bardic Inspiration, roll the Bardic Inspiration die, and add a number rolled to the ability check, potentially turning it into a success. If this check still fails, the Bardic Inspiration die isn't expended. This is a buff. The fact that, like, if you still fail, it isn't expended, sure. These are already very, very, very cheap. So, like, this is here. I'm fine with this. It's essentially the same thing as what we originally saw on College of Lore. It's cleaned up and it is buffed, but in a way to where I think that this is just more of a quality of life. It is a buff, but it feels like a bigger quality of life buff rather than something meant to address what is making a subclass weak, if that makes sense. I just feel like this lore bard is... It might just feel kind of underwhelming by virtue of they lost out on magical secrets, and I think everybody's going to be missing out on that really, really hardcore. I think it's going to wind up getting back to them in feedback. That's just not the way they really want that to work out. Yeah. Okay, getting into Ranger. So, Ranger got massive buffs here. Ranger is eating really, really good at the dinner table right now, okay? Ranger got just an insane amount of love. This is the Ranger revision we've been wanting, but I will say that there are some aspects of this that I just think that they are not totally hitting the mark. I'm skipping over the starting equipment and armor training stuff because that's all essentially playing exactly the same. Getting expertise here. Yes, thank you. They deserve something like this. Although I do think that it would have been cool to see this kick on at 2nd level and maybe see roving or one of the movement features, right? The roving. This would have been nice to see kick on way earlier on. I feel like this is way more evocative of the survivalist idea of a ranger kicked on way at 1st level, right? Give them that mobility. This is going to help out people that want to go with a frontline ranger sort of a build. I don't know why roving is kicked back this far. If I'm remembering this right, it's pretty rare that we see a movement speed increasing feature delayed this late. Okay, so the big change is favorite enemy right here. Okay, so we saw a version of this in an Unearthed Arcana that dropped before Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This got a lot of real good feedback. It is a buff, okay? The signature thing that a ranger should be doing with the Hunter's Mark here, yeah, this is baked in and core to you. It doesn't count against the number of spells that you can prepare. I think that the design space that this can open up is really cool, where each of the different ranger conclaves, and I'm going to keep calling them conclaves because that's so much cooler than ranger archetypes. So each of the ranger conclaves getting something cool in their scaffolding to where Hunter's Mark gets a unique improvement at 6th level or whatever. Very cool idea. I love it. I love it. I love it. I actually think that I would have rather seen the Hunter's Mark improvement for the Hunter in here kick on at 3rd level, because that feels so much more evocative of, like, you know more about these monsters as a hunter. Yeah, like, do that. Let's do something different with the 6th level. If you're doing, like, this thing with Conjure Barrage, oh man, I feel like that could have come on so much. Like, oh, you could have downcast it right up here, you know. Yeah. Favorite enemy, this is a very big, in my mind, I love that this is a change. I love this change right here. This is the kind of thing that you can absolutely build a class around. It is a bit boring that it is just, you get the spell, it's always prepared, yada, yada, yada. It would have been nice to have seen them get something else kicking in here, and like maybe favorite enemy was something that you bake into the spellcasting feature. Yeah. And now, Ranger getting cantrips, a lot of people have been complaining about the fact that half-casters weren't getting access to cantrips. Here you go, you're getting 2 here at 1st level, eventually you get 3 at 10th level. This is, it's going to be pretty much harmless. I will make mention of a few cantrips in here that I think are going to be uniquely strong to Ranger as compared to Druid, and that's operating on the assumption that these are all the same, or that Druid is going to be essentially functioning very similar to what we saw in the player's handbook. Shillelagh works out way better on Rangers than it does for Druids, because if you go with a Wisdom-based Ranger, you can still get a pretty cool Gish feel out of going Shillelagh with that. I think that Thorn Whip, actually, on frontline-focused Rangers, this should probably be pretty core to you. This is a great zoning tool right here. You're getting a pretty fantastic form of control. Otherwise, everything else that's in here, they did change guidance. Guidance isn't as spammable as it was before, right? Otherwise, message, pretty cool. Everything else in here is pretty much whatever. Moving on from there, the way that fighting styles are now working, well, if you're an expert, you can go get one of the fighting style feats. You gain one right now. So either archery, defense, or 2-weapon fighting. Whenever you gain a feat at later levels, fighting style feats are among your options, even though you aren't a member of the warrior group. All right, cool. I like this idea quite a bit. This is actually making me think that, yes, fighting style features or fighting style feats will be unique, and it will be a thing that you are getting as a, like, I won't say warrior here, because what I actually think is that the fighting styles aren't compatible with monk. And we know that monk is going to wind up in that warrior class. So this is, again, me theorizing here, just making a prediction. I don't actually believe that fighting styles are going to be the through line between all the different warriors. I actually think it's going to be maneuvers, like what we saw over in the Battle Master, just being a thing that's repurposed amongst all the different warriors, right? That works out a lot better for monk, actually. That feels a lot more like you've got martial arts techniques, you know? It's also a big fix that people have been recommending for the fighter for a while, so yeah, I don't know. They may or may not show off Battle Master. If they completely gut Battle Master because they're like, making a maneuver specialist fighter whenever everybody else is getting maneuvers, I guess there's things that you can do to enhance that or whatever, but getting those just kind of dulled out to where everyone can go and pick up a different fighting style if they have the appropriate class and whatever, it doesn't feel really unique to a warrior, right? So my theory right now is that the maneuvers are going to be repurposed amongst all the warriors. That's going to be the warrior through line, not fighting style. You get your ranger subclass here. It doesn't actually say any of the names, right? Please don't say we're just calling it ranger subclass. It was so cool to have the different names for the subclasses. If it's just going to be subclass and we're not justifying what your subclass is, I won't be going with this new version of D&D. Your subclass is supposed to be something that deeply informs your character. It just says ranger subclass here. Did it say bard subclass? Yeah, it does just say bard subclasses. I guess it does call it College of Lore. Okay. There should be flavor. There needs to be flavor in the name, in what you're categorizing your subclasses as. Standard MO for extra attack. Roving is the thing that I'm like, they should probably have this kick on earlier. They're getting another expertise at 9th. Tireless. Tireless is one that I see the change going on. I still think that this should require that you are fed and you're not starving and you are well nourished, essentially, right? In order for you to reduce the exhaustion. It's just kind of weird that like you no longer have to sleep, but I guess with part of the fantasy being, Aragorn, then like, sure, whatever. I don't really worry too much about it. It would have just been cool to see it like actually include, be thinking about the more survivalist aspects of D&D a bit more. The temporary hit points here are going to be pretty much harmless. Oh, it is only whenever you finish a short or long rest. Okay, in that case, I think that this used to be a bonus action, right? No, it was an action. Wow, I don't know how I missed that. Okay. So the way I'm looking at this is actually a nerf to tireless now. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can then give yourself the temporary hit points. You're just always going to be doing this unless something else is giving you more temporary hit points than this. So like, okay, yeah, I don't think I'm a fan of that actually. I don't know. That's meh. I guess it's neither here nor there. I will say that we should. I really hope that we see the new barbarian with this on it. Nature's Veil. This is actually buffed. As a bonus action, you can expend the spell slot to become invisible until the end of your next turn. I think that there was some hesitation originally in the read-through, but this was buffed from the old Nature's Veil. The original Nature's Veil would end at the start of your next turn, and this new one actually it doesn't end until the end of your next turn. If you look right here, boom, boom. So you can do this at the start of your turn, become invisible. This doesn't end early because you're making the attack rolls or whatever. And then this invisibility will last until the end of your next turn. So that next turn, you're going to have the action and bonus action to do whatever. This is a very, very, very strong buff to Nature's Veil. This is essentially getting double the efficiency out of this feature right here. This isn't just a buff. This is like, ooh, buddy. You're getting your other subclass feature here at 14th level. Again, we're seeing this somewhat codified, but that codification is one of the things that's going to make this new version incompatible with previous books. All right. So, Feral Senses, they did actually fix this as it originally appeared in the player's handbook. Foe Slayer. Your Hunter's Mark now deals an extra 1d10 damage to its target rather than an extra 1d6. I don't like the weird gradient shift, and this didn't actually scale up to a d8 at any levels. It maybe should have been baked in earlier on, like right here, favorite enemy. Whenever you reach 11th level, it goes up to a d8. Whenever you reach 18th level, it goes up to a d10. I actually think right here, this should just be 2d6. It's weird to skip the die size of the d8. It's not so weird to just double the dice in here. Yeah, it feels weird. I know it's really pedantic. I'm just saying it looks odd. So they do give you the list of prepared ranger spells, and they are, picking up Thorn Whip here. Cure Wounds. You're actually going to be pretty effective with Cure Wounds because of your bigger hit die. But moving on over into the Hunter. Okay, Hunter's Prey. So my understanding is that literally the way that this design went down was that they looked at the feedback from D&D Beyond. What were hunters actually picking from the three options, right? And since they were overwhelmingly going with Colossus Slayer, they just decided to make that core. The other thing to make note of right here, because this is working with an unarmed strike, and it's only saying when you hit a creature, not whenever you deal damage to the creature, it deals an extra d8 of damage to the target if it's missing any of its hit points. So you can shove and still deal damage to it. You can grapple and deal damage to it, according to this wording right here. So there is a buff to its overall flexibility. I think that some people, the feedback I'm hearing at least, is that this just feels pretty boring. It doesn't really feel evocative of being a hunter, right? Whereas this to me was the one that really hit the cool hunter note right here. I think that this should be a thing kicking on as well as the Hunter's Prey here at 3rd level. And that would, oh man, I think that would be super evocative. Yeah, actually, I'm not super sure why they're so conservative with the 3rd level, seeing as most of the other classes are getting 2 3rd level features. So yeah, Wizards, this needs another 3rd level. Please, give it another 3rd level. It needs more, please. The Hunter's Lore, I like this. This is probably my favorite part of the entire UA right here, all right? Multi-attack, I've heard people kind of go back and forth on this one, whether or not. I think pretty much people think that this is pretty meh. The Conjure Barrage, I can see why this is here. They're trying to evoke the fantasy of a lot of rangers in video games. I'm pretty okay with this idea, in theory, right? I like the idea in theory. 10th level, this feels like this kicks on super, super late. I know that this is a 3rd level spell, but again, if you were giving it the ability to downcast to where, like, this is kicking on at 6th level for you, oh, so I can downcast it with a 1st or a 2nd level spell? Cool. So it's weird that I get this 3rd level spell, but I get an AoE really early on to help me out with Horde Clear. Boy, that would actually be really nice because so much of Ranger is informing a striker single target playstyle that, like, you getting access to some Horde Clear that you can downcast like that, I think that would be, I think the perception on that would be a lot better, actually. 14th level, you're getting your Superior Hunter's Defense. Whenever you're hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to have the attack's damage against yourself, and you can redirect the other half of the damage to one creature other than the attacker that you can see within 5 feet of yourself. This is kind of incentivizing you, number one, to be building into a lower AC, because if you have a high AC, you essentially don't have a 14th level feature. Now, if it was like whenever you're targeted with an attack roll, you could potentially do some shenanigans if it misses. Like, if an attack roll misses you, you can use your reaction to instead redirect the attack to a creature. Man, I think that it should have to be like within the range or something like that. This is not a capstone. This is maybe a 10th level feature. Yeah, you could put this as like a 10th level feature. And defensive capstones like this are always going to be really, really underwhelming. People love to see the big excitement of like a Nova in a capstone rather than like a flat, like, you have this thing that you can do as a whatever. This is pretty bad playfield overall. Yeah, you're having to put yourself at risk here. This actually punishes. You can have the attack's damage against yourself, and you can redirect. So you can at least have the damage with range builds, but it's unlikely that ranged rangers focused on the back line are gonna be within 5 feet of another creature to add the other effect of it, right? Oh god, I'm trying to think of ways to make that good. I just think that they need to shift it to 10th level and maybe make it to where it doesn't punish you for building into a high AC build. Yeah, the hunter, there's a lot of clunkiness happening in here. I will always miss the survivalist aspects that this class was always intended to evoke. Ranger needs to still hit that mark somehow, and I hope it isn't just going to be with skill proficiencies that literally anybody else can pick up. The fact that like a rogue can build into it as well and get like the survival and be a better survivalist than the ranger needs something unique into its survival to make sure that its identity is like really solidified and secure. All right, Rogue. Wow, they completely over-nerfed this one. Rogue did not deserve all the nerfs that it got. Let's just skip ahead. They did take off, I remember hearing about this, they took off Longsword from its weapon proficiencies. It was kind of always weird that it was there, but like, I wonder why they decided, yeah. The starting equipment, all that stuff, yeah, moving on. Expertise. This one's actually nerfed, but not actually, you know what? I'm going to backtrack on that. Not quite. They did take away the Thieves' Tool proficiency, but that's because tool proficiencies are operating differently in this new edition. If you have tool proficiency, you can add the proficiency bonus an additional time to the applicable skill check, okay? So, in a way, this is still allowing for that to kind of happen because you have this over here, a proficiency with Thieves' Tools, right? So you will be adding that proficiency bonus an additional time to the check anyways. They simplified tools checks. It is an up on this that I do like. Okay, so the big change is sneak attack. I have been seeing people react all kinds of different ways to this change right here. So here's my take on this. The fact that they removed it to where it was just once on each of your turns, not once on a turn, this now means that this doesn't work with a reaction, correct? Now, what I think that this should still do is apply to opportunity attacks. By doing this, you actually punish melee rogues here. The ones that were making opportunity attacks weren't ranged rogues. It was the ones wielding daggers, short swords, rapiers, whatever, right? So now you punished the melee dagger wielding rogue that was already pretty unfavored in this edition. Now, if you don't want it to work off of your turn, in that something like Ordo Domain Cleric is able to allow you to make an attack as a reaction, and therein it adds your sneak attack, that really doesn't bother me because you're doing some tactical thinking there. I don't know of too many people that actually think that reaction to do the sneak attack is all that busted. I actually think that it's pretty cool that you are evoking the feeling of you are taking advantage of the enemy not making a tactical decision in combat by disengaging from you, right? I actually think it would be so cool that if sneak attack applied to the weapon attacks that you have advantage on, whatever here, the ally adjacent to the target, and then on opportunity attacks, okay? Even if it's like not all attacks as a reaction, right, but only like opportunity attacks, oh, I think that would be so cool. I think that that's something that Rogue does need. We all know that Rogue has needed a bit of a damage lift here. I have seen people say that they worry about the way that like this could potentially cause a big damage spike or whatever. Hey, apparently you haven't seen how low Rogue's DPR is, okay? Rogue needs some kind of a lift here. This is a nerf, and not a really welcome nerf in my opinion. Thieves' Cant is essentially you're just getting Thieves' Cant and another language in here. It's here. Cunning action is essentially the same from what I remember. Uncanny Dodge is acting effectively the exact same. Your subclass feature is kicking on a little bit earlier, so Rogue did get a buff there, I guess we could say. Moving on from there, Evasion is effectively the same, if I'm recalling that correctly. The 10th level subclass feature, you're getting reliable talent right here. Whenever you make an ability check that uses one of your skill or tool proficiencies, you can treat a d20 roll of a 9 or lower as a 10. So this is essentially the exact same thing here. There may be some mechanical differences in here because you're saying that like maybe the tool proficiency would apply where the skill you're using potentially didn't. There could be an interaction in here that I'm simply not thinking of right now that is kind of making this different. The addition of skill or tool proficiencies, the fact that it did originally just say ability check meant that it would have already applied to a potential tool proficiency check. I'm not exactly sure how the mathematics are playing out in terms of how it's all computed with the dice roll, but this all feels exactly the same to me. Subtle Strikes is giving you pack tactics. You're getting pack tactics, the old mechanic here on Subtle Strikes. I don't mind that this is here, but it does feel like for some reason this should have been on earlier. Like Subtle Strikes, I would so much rather have the reactions. I really would. I would so much rather have the reaction than have this tacked on here. Because like this isn't really an increase to your overall, like you could say it's an increase in the DPR, but like it's not another instance of the attack action during a round, but it's potentially another instance of sneak attack happening during a round, right? We do have the changes made to light weapons to where Rogue is somewhat quote unquote getting extra attack as long as they're using a light weapon. And like, this just doesn't really feel like it's quite right to me at all. I'm trying to figure out why. I also think that some tables that are running the flanking rules just sort of as is, this could feel like it's not really much of anything to you. We'll see what they do with flanking if they decide to keep that in. Slippery Mind just giving you wisdom and buffing it to where you've got the charisma saving throws. Sure, cool. Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take anything we can get for this class right now. Elusive. No attack roll has advantage against you while you aren't incapacitated. This is the same. Stroke of Luck. This is allowing you to get a crit off, guaranteed at least once during a combat. You have an uncanny knack for succeeding when you need to. If you fail a d20 test, you can turn the roll into a 20. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So once for long rest, this is also applying to saving throws, okay? So you have the saving throws, you have the ability checks, and attack rolls that this can apply to. You're guaranteeing a crit with an attack roll. So that's solid. That's real solid, especially if the sneak attack is going to add up on top of that. It's not bad, okay? I do think that the strongest use of this is just guaranteed that you're going to succeed on a saving throw, especially because evasion is in here with that, just kind of informing that. But, you know, the option is here. Other than that, you do get the epic boon, Thief. Boy, I don't know why they crapped on this subclass so hard. I don't know why. The unique ability to use an object as a bonus action. Look, they could have just refined that by refining the use an object action. Okay, it needed that refinement anyways. So while you're in there doing that work, let's not create more work by completely changing it up to where you can take the search action as a bonus action on your. Yeah. I do like the idea of making this the cunning action subclass, right? That should be cool. There's some unique things that you can do with your cunning action. Very cool. You have the other object interactions in here. So, like, yeah. I'm just always going to misuse an object. That always felt super evocative and super fun to play as a thief. I've seen a lot of people also complain about this just feeling like a total flavor fail. I'd have to agree. Second story work has been cleaned up. Part of me thinks it might be cool to see like a rogue subclass in the future. Like, hey, you want to bring back that acrobat? You can take the jump action as a bonus action on your turn. You know what? I bet you will actually see that on Monk. I bet you we will probably see that on Monk. This is here. It's all pretty much just an offensive. Supreme Sneak. A part of me thinks that this is actually a nerf, but knowing that most rogues are going to get this like anyways, you can still move for your full turn and still get the advantage on the dexterity stealth check, provided you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor. Use magic device to get changes. You can attempt the 4 magic items at once. Cool, I'm here for it. The charges, you roll a d6. On a roll of 6, you use the property without expending charges. This is interesting, a cool idea. There's a whole lot of magic items that require charges that I just can't recall off the top of my head right now to, give a reference for this. This thing with scrolls, I don't know, part of me thinks that this feels more Arcane Trickster than Thief. Honestly, everything with Use Magic Device, it's cool. I would rather it stay here on the Thief. I would. But, yeah, this does feel kind of odd on here. But I generally think that it's pretty inoffensive. Thief's Reflexes is just gutted. Just absolutely gutted. You can now take a second bonus action on your turn, provided it's the bonus action from Cunning Action. What are you going to do? Like, you can dash twice. That's good. You can disengage and then dash. That's good. You can dash and hide or disengage and hide. I guess that it's good, but 2 turns, this compared to 2 turns on your first round of combat is just, woof, I'm not a fan of this change. I don't really see, especially because they're changing the way that sneak attack is working. It should have just been you have the additional turn in combat, like on that first round. This feels really unnecessary. You're dashing and then you've got to track this resource for the dash. This doesn't feel capstone worthy. Like, I know that this is good. I'm kind of wondering if it's the kind of thing that I personally would have rather seen dished out to all rogues. I wonder if we're going to see that on Monk, because Monk could actually use something like that quite a bit. Going into the feats. Okay, a lot of these get changed into half feats. I will not be breaking down absolutely every feat in here. I'll give a brief overview as to the ones that I think were like kind of worth a call out here. Actor, mostly the same. Athlete, this one is actually worth picking up now. It's giving you some mechanical benefits in here. Worth getting. New Charger is actually looking so good, I may have to revise some things for the Vanguard whenever I update it. Reason being, this charge attack right in here, man, this means that you can shove with you can use the attack action, shove, push it up to potentially 15 feet. On the Vanguard, this would be like 20 feet, and then you're yeah. It does say the attacks damage roll, so I would assume that this wouldn't work with. They're changing up unarmed strike. They need to account for the changes that are happening in unarmed strike. They need to make sure that they clarify whether or not this adds if it's a shove, right? Or a grapple, Crossbow Expert got some pretty significant changes in here. You ignore the loading properties of crossbows. The fact that it's a light weapon has some new mechanical weight to it. And actually, let's go move forward and talk about the light weapon changes. So light weapon, when you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon in one hand, you can make one extra attack as a part of the same action. That extra attack must be made with a different light weapon in the other hand, and you don't add your ability modifier to the attack's damage. You can make this extra attack only once on each of your turns, so no more bonus action that you have to attack, right? For example, if you take the attack action on your turn and have a short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, each of which has the light property, you can make one attack with each weapon, but you don't add your strength or dexterity modifier to the damage roll of the second weapon. So now you can add it as long as it's a crossbow with the light property. Cool. We dig that. We like that a whole lot. It still has the firing and melee stuff. Yeah. So defensive duelist, this one is essentially the same. It's just now a half feat dual wielder. Now that it has all the new stuff that happens with the light property, this one is buffed. It's also a half feat, and it has this quick draw mechanic in here where you can draw or stow 2 weapons that have the two-handed property when you could normally be able to only stow 1. All right, okay, cool. Glad that this is here. Dual wielder gets a buff. All here for it. Durable. You have advantage on death saving throws. As a bonus action, you can expend one of your hit dice, roll the die, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll. Now, if there are any effects that are going to increase hit point rolls, like rolls for healing or anything like that, this is actually probably worth considering kind of a feat right here. The advantage on the death saving throws, I don't think that players are going to be like dying a whole lot in this new edition. I'm not saying that as any kind of a dig on like, we're going D&D easy mode or anything like that. I'm just saying based off of what I've seen in things like Bard getting healing as a bardic inspiration use, that it can use it refreshes during a short rest, monsters have got to get more deadly for this to look really even slightly appealing here. I don't think that Defy Death is worth the pickup. It being a half feat, this feels actually still pretty weak here, honestly. The speedy recovery is nice, but like, I could even see this just being a variant rule that like, you can spin and roll the hit dice as a bonus action, allowing it to be some part of I don't know. There could be some kind of a tie-in there. But yeah, there will be a perceived loss of value with this one because you're not getting to add your con modifier to it. Players are just going to hold on to these dice for short rests. We can see that coming in. Elemental Adept is now a half feat, so yay. It's essentially all functioning the exact same, so we can move on from there. The Epic Boons. All the Epic Boons, they are not really well balanced against each other here. There are some that feel like they are just objectively better than other options. I think that there's some interesting flexibility in some of these ideas right here. Epic Boon of Energy Resistance is giving you a flexible damage type resistance that you can like meditate and change with. Like that's actually what I think is one of the stronger options here. But like, if you look at something like Peerless Aim, if you make a ranged attack against a target and in range and miss, you can cause the attack to hit instead. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you roll initiative. So like once per combat, you can guarantee that an attack is going to hit. So like this is good, but like I just think having another damage resistance is pretty solid around on just about every character. Or like Epic Boon of Irresistible Offense, the damage you deal always ignores resistance. Again, real solid pickup. The Epic Boon of Skill Proficiency, don't pick this one up. There are so many other ways that you can do this. You're actually, like, if you're building out a skill monkey, you've probably already got this. I promise you that there are going to be builds out there that are just going to get you all skill proficiencies without wasting your Epic Boon pick. The Epic Boon of Speed is one that I think me as a frontliner, this feels like the no-dub pickup. Your speed increases by 30 feet. Are you kidding me? Yes, I am all here for that. Positioning is everything to martials. So, yeah, I would 100% pick that up. Epic Boon of Undetectability is just while you're hidden, you can't be detected by any means, magical or non-magical. So, like, I thought that this was really goofy that you could, like, protect yourself from being detected by the wish spell by, like, I don't know, throwing a blanket over your head. This one is ridiculous. It's goofy. Yeah. I like the idea here of Epic Boon of the Unfettered. As a bonus action, you can take the disengage action, which also ends the grappled and restrained conditions on you. This is pretty sick. I don't know that here at 20th level, this is going to be all that worth it. I know that, like, you get swallowed by a creature or you get bitten and it restrains you, right? Like, that's nice to pick up. But, yeah, Epic Boon of the Unfettered. This is this is cool, but there's so many other flashier options here. Okay, so moving on from there, we have the different fighting styles. These are all looking essentially the same. They're all feats now, though, so that's interesting. Two weapon fighting is now allowing you to add your ability modifier to the damage of the extra attack you make with a weapon with a light property. This can be redundant with some of the feats that we have in here, so, just keep an eye out on that. Grappler did get a buff. Grappler got a buff also just by virtue of unarmed strikes being changed in here. You aren't slowed when you move a creature grappled by yada yada yada. We did see Grappler get a slight buff in here. I still don't know that this is going to be like, you want to roll up your wrestler. Grappler could be a viable way to do it. I think that the unarmed strike changes are actually pretty interesting, and I'm here to see what all else are going to adapt for that. Great Weapon Master. Finally got a nerf. It's now a half feat, and immediately after you score a critical hit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with 1, you can make one attack with the same weapon as a bonus action. I will 100% take it. When you hit a creature with a heavy weapon as a part of the attack action on your turn, you can cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target. This extra damage equals your proficiency bonus, and you can deal it only once per turn. I don't know that this one is actually going to be core for most pickups anymore. Great Weapon Master was kind of the default, like, no duh, you get that on a martial list if you're going with heavy weapons. Like, yeah, absolutely. Now, this seems like something that you may consider, but I'm going to leave that up to some of the, like, crunch guys to really figure that out. Heavily Armor did get a change. You can increase your Constitution or Strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20. It was originally only Strength, and you gain the Heavy Armor training. Cool. Heavy Armor Master, this one needed a buff. Let's see if it got the buff. It got the buff. Cool. Increase your Constitution or Strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20. And then when you're hit by an attack while you're wearing heavy armor, any bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage dealt to you by that attack is reduced by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus. Alright, this originally did not work against magical bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. This feat got to be completely useless at the upper tiers of play. Now that this is here, very, very nice. Very, very strong. Oh, and on top of that, it now scales equal to your proficiency bonus. So we already had the +2 right here when we pick it up at fourth level. Scales all the way up to a +6 later on. You're telling me I reduce any bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage I take by 6? Oh, that's really nice. That is super strong. In fact, I think that Heavy Armor Master may be up there. It's actually probably looking better than Great Weapon Master right now. Inspiring Leader is now a half feat, so you are getting the buff to either your Wisdom or Charisma score. And then it did get a change here where it's specifically at the end of a short rest or long rest. The change here, making it to where it doesn't require 10 minutes anymore. I'm guessing this is solving for some kind of a gameplay loop. I'm not sure I've ever really heard of that, though. But you are getting the temporary hit points equal to 2d4 plus your proficiency bonus. So this is actually much better earlier on. I think it might fall off a little bit late, but, hey, you can still do this during the short rest or long rest and buff up all of your buddies. So, like, it's nice. This is actually pretty significant. I'm probably underselling it here. Keen Mind, giving you the ability to take the study action as a bonus action. I actually quite like these new actions that they've given us. Because what they've done with these new actions is give us something that we can point to and build features around, right? So when you take the study action, you can make an intelligence check to study your memory, a book, a creature, a clue, an object, or another source of knowledge, and call to mind an important piece of information about it. The areas of knowledge table suggests which skills are applicable and when you take this action, depending on the area of knowledge the intelligence check is about. I love that they solidified this. They gave it to where they made it to where in combat we're not fiddling around with like, I'm making a skill check right now. Yeah, but I don't really want that to take up all of your turn, so I'm going to kind of give you that right now. No. We simplified it. It takes up a part of the action economy. Very clear, very clean. I love that this is here. You can do it as a bonus action. All right, I'll take it. Mage Slayer did definitely get a buff in the fact of Guarded Mind right here. If you fail an intelligence, a wisdom, or a charisma saving throw, you can cause yourself to succeed instead. And once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Boy, that's actually pretty impactful, not gonna lie. The concentration breaker, this is nice to have in here. Sure. This buff right here, the fact that it's just any intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, boy, this is actually really, really useful. This feat may very well be worth picking up. Medium armor did get some changes in here. It originally said that it doesn't cause disadvantage on the strength or the stealth check. And right here, we're seeing just the bonus added in. So I'm not sure, we'll have to see that later on. Mounted combatant did actually get a nerf in a way because it's now it requires your reaction in order to use veer to cause the thing to hit you instead. So like, was there a reason for that? I'm not sure. It probably should have always required the reaction. I'm just curious if like maybe, I don't know, if somebody figured something out where you like hopping piggyback on somebody and then they were like effectively immortal if you were like, riding on them. Observant is another one. You can take the search action as a bonus action. Again, codifying more of these skill checks inside of the fact that these are now in the action economy is going to improve the game, I promise. Polearm Master did get some changes as well. Immediately after you take the attack action and attack with a weapon that has the heavy and reach properties, you can use a bonus action to make a melee attack with the opposite end of the weapon. The weapon's damage die for this attack is a d4, and it deals bludgeoning damage. It looks like what they were trying to do here is address a playstyle in which someone was using a spear and a shield, which it was kind of clear wasn't intended with this feature, because how are you flipping the spear over this way, Yeah. Reactive Strike. While you're holding a weapon that has the heavy and reach properties, you can use your reaction to make one melee attack against a creature that enters the reach you have with that weapon. I still think Polearm Master is looking real pretty, and I mean real pretty. It is restricted to 4th level, so it's not the kind of thing that you can get with like Variant Human and Sentinel that early. So the earliest that we would be able to do the Sentinel and Polearm Master is going to be like, what, 8th level? Oh, that hurts. It might be a little bit earlier that we can kick that on with the fighter, but it's going to hurt to see that go away. Ritual casting did get some changes. It really just mostly got the kind of thing that is going to give it an actual benefit in here. So overall, I'm pretty alright with what they're doing with Ritual Caster and quick Ritual. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, so Ritual Caster, yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah! Sentinel! I think a lot of people knew that this is my favorite feat in terms of how it would inform a particular playstyle. This new one, it feels like it's functioning essentially the same, although we do have this like weird interaction that's happening whenever it says, whenever a creature takes the disengage action, you can make an opportunity attack against the creature. That seems really counterintuitive. I know how they want that to work, but like, okay. Sharpshooter. So Sharpshooter did get a change in that we're not getting the damage fluctuation happening, right? You sacrifice the attack roll to get the damage as well, because you can game that out to where it's not really a detriment at all. But you can now bypass cover. It's cool. Being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage with it. Cool. And then attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged attack rolls with weapons. So sorry, all the Sharpshooter fans out there, that was necessary. Skulker. So there's an odd interaction happening with Skulker, right? Where like it says sniper, but it says if you make an attack roll while hidden, it just doesn't say that it needs to be a ranged attack roll, and it feels like it should, but you are getting the blind sight. And Fog of War, exploiting the distractions of battle, you have advantage on any dexterity. It's a stealth check you make as a part of the hide action during combat. So like you always pick this up on rogue, right? I'm looking at this and I'm like, still, why would you play a melee rogue right now whenever ranged rogue is just getting all the toys put in its box? Like, Speedster is new mobile. Spell Sniper is an increased range with spells, yada yada. Warcaster, effectively operating much in the same way. And then we have weapon training, giving you martial weapons proficiency as a half feat. Okay, geez, that is a lot of information. Now, some of the other things, just a real quick kind of brief over here. I love, love, love that we are seeing them codify so many of the things that have been really, really up in the air. Difficult terrain got some clarification in here. Blind sight got a lot of clarification in here. We did see some reversions made to D20 testing, and where if you roll a 20 on the D20, it doesn't give you inspiration anymore. It's on a roll of 1. So I'm all here for that idea. The jump action is a real interesting one. Jumping no longer is like specifically something that happens during your move. It is an actual action that would take place. So this actually opens up some interesting space to design around that I'm all here for. I had actually talked on Flutes' stream about being able to make a Dragoon from Final Fantasy now, because this is an action and it's so much easier to write whenever it is that action. Yeah, magic is now an action. I'm kind of curious why it's not cast as an action. The light weapon changes are here. They're welcomed. You're now regaining all your hit dice on a long rest. So we closed off some design space in that. Ritual casting, we all know the interesting, like, okay, and that's all open up to everybody now. All the new actions are here. Cool. Yes. Okay. So I hope that helps out. I am going to make actually one check real quick. I couldn't remember. Arcane spells. Cantrips. Cantrips, guys. Eldritch Blast is just going to be, yep, it is just going to be a Warlock feature. Okay, so that is going to be it on this one. The rest of the rules glossary is, I mean, there is information in here. It's mostly just kind of clarifying rules that we already knew, you know, yada, yada, yada. So I am going to wrap this up on this one right here. Hopefully I can cut this down to where it's like maybe a 45-minute video, but that's my thoughts on this Unearthed Arcana. Let me know what you all think down in the comment section below. A huge shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. You all are absolute heroes. And by the way, all the affiliate links down below. I am an affiliate of Hero Forge, of Only Crits, and Many Worlds Taverns Coffee. So go check all that stuff out. I promise you I'm only endorsing the stuff that I personally use, okay? So, anyways, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.